Well, you don't do an introduction? What the hell's going on here around here?
Depending on where you are listening to us in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Jason Burns.
And I'm Danny Nucci, and this is the What About podcast.
Danny, it's good to see you again.
I'm seeing way too much of you.
I know, we have
just
seen
letting you
each
know,
other a lot.
way too much of you.
I'm going to have to start shaving and making myself look all nice.
Taking a shower, looking presentable. Fuck that.
Ugh. Well, we just got some pretty bum news recently, and I just wanted to share a little bit. I was a latchkey kid. I grew up on TV, basically. My parents both worked multiple shifts. And I grew up on a lot of Three's Company episodes. Like that was my jam.
Yeah.
I thought John Ritter was like the best physical comic actor I've ever seen. But not to be outdone, Suzanne Summers was a riot. And she could go toe-to-toe with John in the physical sense. Janice DeWitt was like the straight person in the scene, but... Joyce, what did I say? Janice? Joyce DeWitt. But man, Suzanne Summers could knock it out of the park. And I was so sad.
Chrissy was my friend.
Yeah?
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Chrissy was my friend.
Sad to see that she had left the world, and I hope her family the best. But man, what a great legacy to left so many laughs behind.
Oh, man. Just a lot of joys and a lot of laughter.
I have a nice Regal Beagle sweatshirt.
Do you really? That's awesome.
I really do. Yeah. I'll have to wear that in her honor, John's honor, all that good stuff.
You know what's really frightening? I'm only 5 years younger than Mr. Roper.
Really?
That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to say.
I hope you meant Mr. Roper at the time.
Yes, Mr. Roper at the time, of course.
Okay.
Norman Fell, I don't think is with us any longer.
I don't think there's many from that series left, unfortunately.
Janice, I think, is still with us. No, is she?
I think so.
Joyce. I meant Joyce.
Joyce.
I'm just teasing you. Speaking of teasing, how about Bobby Lee? Bobby Lee, comedian extraordinaire, actor, podcast legend.
Superstar podcaster, yeah.
Podcast legend, and he's on tour. So check him out. Anywho, without further ado,
let's do it.
Bobby Lee.
Well, you've been doing podcasts a long time. Let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. It kind of segues into what you and Danny have been talking about on that side of the screen. Give us some advice. What do we need to know? What's the what have you walked into in this podcasting world that you didn't know you'd find?
Well, for me, it's like I figured out that if I plan, it doesn't always work the way I plan. So I just kind of like free ball it. Like I just kind of go into it, and then through editing and stuff. Like sometimes we have to edit like 60% of it because it's garbage. But I'd rather do it this way than plan, because and I don't like doing it through Zoom because I need to be in the room with somebody to feel energy and what they're like. So it's like, that's why we're doing it like this. I mean, you're not here, but at least we have Danny with me.
Well, you can see him. You're looking at him. He's right there.
It doesn't matter. I need to feel his energy. I need to see what his body looks like. I really do.
He's in very good shape.
It would kind of be like doing stand up, without a live audience, right? You don't have anything to work off of.
That's what it is. Yeah, like back in the quarantine days, they did stand up Zoom. I was like, I'm not. Hold on,
you got people?
My ex-girlfriend. Hold on. Sorry. I'm podcasting right now. Hello? I am. Danny came over and we're podcasting.
Oh, we're keeping.
Okay. Anyway, I'll talk to you in a second. Bye.
We're for sure keeping that.
I can do whatever.
That gives my. This is what.
Do whatever.
How do you do that? How do you work every day with your ex?
What do you mean?
I don't know. How do you do it?
When I go into, you want to realize, when I go into relationships, I don't view them as sexual objects. I have to like them first, and I have to be friends with them first. Like, this is my homie. This is somebody that I can trust with my finances. Somebody that
Wait, is that on your profile?
Yeah.
Must be able to trust with my finances.
Yes, or like secrets, or all kinds of stuff. I need that first.
I want to see your profile. I'm going to let you finish. I just love that. Need to be trusted with my secrets and my finances.
At what point in the relationship do they get the finances?
I don't mean finances in that way, but I'm like back in the 1800s or whatever. Let's say I robbed gold bars from a bank, right? I got to be able to like go to a woman and go, keep these for me for a year.
You need your Bonnie to your Clyde.
Right. I'm running from the law. I trust you in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's what I mean by finances.
Well, actually, my ex-girlfriend is married to my best friend of my whole life now. So
your ex, yeah. And when you run into her, how do you feel?
I see her all the time because
grateful.
I'm just kidding.
Thank you, Lord. So that's how I do it. I love her like so deeply,
already,
like a family.
And so it's
10 years together. I mean, you develop a relationship.
Yeah, no, I've been married twice. I
know.
I'm familiar with the long-term
do you talk to your ex-wife?
Yeah, she's the mother of my child. Of course, I talk to her.
But you guys are friendly.
Yeah,
it's amazing. So that's how I do it. Out of love.
Yeah, because it's hard to love somebody and then say, okay, I used to love this person, but now I can't stand them at all and don't want to talk to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, but it's hard to say goodbye to all of that.
Also, like, sex is not that important to me anymore. I can't come. I really can't. I can't. I
generally, or just in general.
Honestly, dude, Danny, I have a problem. I can't come
at all.
I think I don't know what it is. I can get hard, but I can't come.
Okay, so basically they're happy because they don't.
No, but then eventually I have to fake. I fake orgasms.
You do not.
I swear to God, I do.
You do not.
Sometimes I do. Yeah.
Just to call it, you just need to put a stopwatch on it and say, okay, it's gone.
Well, I have to put like an hour. Yeah, it's like, and they've already come a couple times.
Yeah,
I'm like, I gotta get.
They're ready. They're waiting.
Yeah. There's other things to do.
It's whiskey dick without the whiskey.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But and I don't know why I just revealed that. But so anyway, I love her. That's why.
Because that's how you roll. Were you always this revealing? Was your comedy when you started this revealing?
Yeah. I mean, what are you revealing?
Well, did you when you start
truthful?
Yeah, did you just come out and say, yeah, I just met this girl, I can't come? I mean, is that how you would start?
To me, that's not a secret though. I don't know why. I mean, for me, it's like that's just a regular conversational piece. It's not something I would withhold. I mean, there's not a lot of things I'm embarrassed about.
You do know that that's particular to you. That's not commonplace. You are aware of that.
It should be.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that can't come.
I'm sure there's a lot of people.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that
I'm
can't
not an anomaly.
No judgment. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can't come. I don't think there's a lot of people that are wanting to talk about it first thing on a podcast, is my point.
I think Lenny Bruce used to have a bit about not being able to come way back in the day.
Are you being real?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. So, I'm like Lenny Bruce, but now.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're the Korean Lenny Bruce.
I'm the Korean Lenny Bruce.
Can we call you that from now on?
Whatever.
Should I use that in the intro?
I'm more of a Korean Flip Wilson. Do you remember Flip Wilson?
Sure, of course.
I'm more like him, but yeah. But somebody from the past.
So when you started, because I don't know how you started.
Started what?
Life. When you were born, how did that start?
Somebody came.
When you started when you started comedy back in the day, I'm assuming in San Diego somewhere.
I was sober.
When you started doing comedy?
I was in AA when I started.
Get out.
I swear to God. I got sober when I was 17, and then when I was 23, I was 6 years sober, and I started then.
And what prompted that?
I was at what's it called on Wednesday nights? The what's that group? That Nazi group, AA group, that Clancy I started.
The Pacific Group.
Pacific Group. So I guess the Pacific Group had a meeting in La Jolla on Saturday nights in San Diego.
Okay.
It was a speaker meeting, much like the Pacific. So it was more like, how people dress nicer, like ties and stuff like that.
Sure, I've heard that in 12-step program meeting rooms.
Yeah.
People dress up.
They dress up
as if they're going to church, kind of.
Right. The thing. I'm always anti that, so I always just show up with no shirt on or just being so rebellious,
Sure.
But one day they were like, can you speak?
Can you imagine Bobby coming to your church with no shirt on?
Yeah. So I was 23. Or 22. They asked me to be the first speaker. Like the first speaker is 5 minutes.
So you basically got up and told.
I had my shirt on then.
Your drinking story, in essence.
Yeah, it was one of those meetings where it was a theater, not a theater, but there was a big crowd.
Okay, so you get up there
and I crushed,
and you killed it.
I fucking crushed,
and that was the first time you ever felt like, okay, this.
No, but when I would share, I would crush, and then people would always go well, you should do comedy.
That's not true.
I swear to God.
That's how it started.
There was this is a true story. There was on Friday nights. There was a meeting called North Park Men's.
Okay.
And I spoke on that one too. And there was a man that came up to me after the meeting, and he goes, "Hey, I honestly think you should do comedy." And then I never saw that man again. But for some reason, he was so convincing that I tried it.
Isn't that weird how this little thing, this person that can come into our life can put us on a different path you never expected?
But also on the verge. I was on the verge of like relapse, or when I was 23, had 2 jobs. I was waiting tables, working at a coffee shop. I couldn't get laid. I had no future. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So it was one of those desperate moments where I was just like, if I don't do something, I don't know what the point is. Because I don't want, I used to look at, there was a Pacific Beach Alano Club. I used to like skateboard by it. And I used to see like 60, 70-year-old men just sitting there playing chess all day. And I was like, that's not the life. And guys with a lot of time, guys with like 25 years would just waste their day away.
Sober a long time.
Yeah. And they would play cards. And I was just like, yeah, I don't foresee that. I don't want that
That wasn't
life.
your vision at 23.
No, or like if I have 30 years of sobriety, I don't want to end up being at the Alano Club. Just being sober, but living like a small life.
And when did this start? When did you start pursuing it? Actually, did you take a class?
I was 23. No.
Did you take a class, or did you started going to open mic nights? What was the
So
the
there
genesis?
was this guy named Randy, and I've never seen him again since that time period. But I met Randy at an improv class. Okay, there was this.
Yeah, I got it. The improv.
Yeah, well,
class.
there was a guy named Gary.
That was a nice pause.
Do you know who Gary Austin is?
I do not.
He started the Groundlings in
Okay,
the
sure.
early
Of
70s.
course.
So Gary Austin used to teach. He would take his classes on the road, and once a month he would teach in San Diego in Pacific Beach. And I met this guy named Randy, some Jewish guy. And then one day at class, he was like, "This is after the North Park Men's thing," and he goes, "I'm going to try stand up. I'm going to do it at this coffee shop."
So the seed had been planted, and you're like, "Fuck it."
It's already planted. Yeah, so I was going to go see Randy. So I went to the coffee shop to see Randy, and he had signed my name up. And then they just called my name.
And you went up there,
and I went up.
This is what I'm doing.
I just went up, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was so scared, but something just drove me up there, and I went up there.
Did you have material?
No, not really. No,
you were just talking about you.
I was just doing what I'm doing now, and then and that was thrilling.
There's an alternative reality where if you didn't pursue sobriety, you never would have taken this path. You wouldn't be where you are today.
No. I truly believe.
Yeah, he'd be dead.
I'd be dead.
Sobriety.
I mean, I got sober in high school, so it's like I just thought there's just no way. I mean, because everything led me to. I went to rehab in La Jolla, right? So then, after I graduated from high school, I moved to La Jolla because that's where all my AA people were. But that's where the Comedy Store is, right? So it's like just everything led. And then one day, I was walking by the Comedy Store after I did that. Thomas Paine coffee shop, that's what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a help wanted sign because I was working at a coffee shop next to it called Disc Cafe. And Disc Cafe had closed, and I was like, I need another job. And I walked by the Comedy Store, and it said help wanted. So I knocked on the door, and this guy Fred Burns answered, and he goes, he had spinal bifida.
Wait a minute, you actually knocked on the Comedy Store door?
It was during the day.
I
yeah,
need a job.
Yeah, he knew me because I used to get change for the coffee shop to the Comedy Store because they were both open at nights.
Okay.
And so he kind of knew me. He's like, "Oh, yeah, you're that kid from next door." I go,
Did
"Yeah."
you know that you were a comedian? Well, you weren't really a comedian at this point.
No, but I think people got a gist of like I was kind of funny guy,
Sure.
you know. So he's like, "Well, all we have is a bar back position," and I know I was sober, but I was like, "I'll take it." And then I started working there, and then I saw an open mic. Yeah, and then
this was in La Jolla, right?
Yeah, in La Jolla, yeah. And then I went up. And I started going up on the open and became a regular there. And then immediately things just fucking snowballed.
Took off.
Yeah, I met Paulie like maybe a couple of months in, Carlos Mencia, some of these guys and then they both had asked me to open for them. And I'd only been newcom for a couple of months. And then
which must have opened up your audience, right? There are people that wouldn't normally have seen you.
There was nobody at open mics. There was like 5 people, right? So then Paulie asked me to open for him in Vegas. And this is in the 90s.
And did you start writing at this point?
Yeah, now I'm writing. Yeah, I think I had about 3 minutes, and then Paulie goes,
"Well, hold on. What? How did you get from I'm pretty funny, I got up in front of people at an AA meeting and crushed, to now I've got to figure out how to write this stuff?"
Well, I did Thomas Paine, no material. when I was at the store, because I was around a lot of local comics, you learn that, you have to write and you have to have a notebook.
So you just sort of absorbed it.
You just kind of learn.
Job.
You must have seen them doing the same material, slightly different ways, honing it, getting it ready to take out on the road, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but also I had watched. I was a fan of comedy, so I had seen every prior at Blockbuster. I would go buy whatever stand up that they had, and on late night TV as a kid, I would watch it. So I understood generally what it was. I just, in the beginning, you're so hacky. You're like kind of doing what other people are kind of doing,
sure,
and so it's not good in that way. But and then people tell you don't do that. It's trial and error.
So you just started living in this comedy community in La Jolla at the Comedy Store, and absorbing all the sort of ins and outs.
I was hated though.
Why? Because you're just a big personality?
No, I just didn't.
I didn't care.
I mean, guys that were there for like 20, 30 years just didn't like me.
You have no sense of why?
I think I was brash. I was sort of like, also because Paulie and Carlos early on
liked you, yeah.
You know what I mean? Liked me, and they had been there forever, and they,
it's like high school, that community.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been comedy adjacent.
Yeah.
Right. So I've sort of been around, but not in, and it feels like high school, bro.
It's so, yeah.
It's very, very much like high school. So I could see, he opened, so I guess he's gonna open. I guess he hasn't even worked yet. I could just totally see it.
Yeah, and also I just didn't, because as soon as I started, I was like, I have to navigate this, and I'm kind of an opportunistic kind of a guy,
So you knew you were funny. You watched comedy, but was it at those AA meetings, Bobby, where you got the feedback from the people in the audience, where you were like, shit, I need that. I need more of that.
Yeah, but it's a different kind of reaction when you're doing stand up. I mean, in AA, like I'm seeing this girl right now. She sings at church, and she sings in those mega churches.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, people know her, but it's not the same kind of vibe where it's like when you crush at a comedy club, it's like, oh, I'm gonna get pussy. I'm gonna, you know what I mean? Right? I mean, that's like essentially what it is. Like, I'm gonna get pussy.
Oh, I thought you said publicity the first time. All right.
I'm gonna get laid. I'm sorry. That's
sure. No. This is we don't. This is unrated.
I shouldn't say. Maybe bleep out pussy. Maybe I don't know what your audience is like.
They're a bunch of pussies.
Anyway, so then and then I opened for Paulie in front of it was like 7,000 people.
Get out.
Yeah. At the top of the
roof. Did you hit? Did you crush it?
What happened was I was there. It was probably 1996.
Oh, this is like the height of Paulie, right? The MTV Paulie.
Yeah. And his mom was there. And I remember,
for people that don't know, Mitzi Shore is Pauly Shore's mother.
Yeah, and she owned the Comedy Store. And she and I remember afterwards, she just walks up to me and she goes, you're a regular at all my clubs.
That's great.
But then when we came back to San Diego, I mean, I was hated.
Because you had success, because you were starting.
I was the only guy that had ever, in the last 10 years, become a regular from La Jolla. 20 years maybe, you know what I mean, at that time. So it was like, people were like, what the fuck? This kid just started.
So they saw it as you moving to the top without paying your dues kind of thing?
Well, also, I'm like one of those, like, I would stab people in the back. I would do all, I was like,
high character guy.
I was conniving. You know what I mean? I'm like, how do I navigate this thing? And
sure, you were desperate. You were trying to figure out how to make a living and do this.
I just wanted it.
Yeah.
I wanted it. And I stopped going to meetings. As soon as I started,
well, something replaced it. Like other people's laughter was.
I thought it was God. It felt like God, and it felt like, but it turns out it's not.
Oh, does it? Is that?
It's not God.
It's not God.
It's not God. It's not God.
Is that what experience has taught you, that it's not God?
But it feels like it. It feels like there's an artificial feeling of like, this hole is being filled, temporarily.
Validation. You're getting validation.
So is it like you replaced from an addiction standpoint, you replace one high with another? This is another kind of a high.
Yeah, because obviously this dopamine hits when you're out there and all that stuff. So it felt like a drug, actually, And so I stopped going to meetings for many, many years until I relapsed. I relapsed at the age of 30.
After how many years of sobriety, Bobby?
Almost 13.
And at what point because obviously you did MADtv. Was that your first sort of?
That's when I relapsed.
So at the height of your career, in essence, in terms of your profile, that's when you relapsed?
I wouldn't say it was the height. At the time, it was like as soon as I got on that show, I was like, oh, this is the lowest I've ever been. I fucking hated it.
So basically, the fact that you were on a popular skit comedy show doing what you want rather than being some loser in San Diego, this didn't fix it for you?
No. If you think that the comedy scene is cutthroat and sad, being on a sketch show.
I actually never thought of the comedy scene as being cutthroat and sad, but thank you.
Yeah, it is.
Is it? Okay,
To me, it is.
I didn't know. I had no idea.
And then when I got on Mad, I was like, oh, this is worse. This is like, and I don't have the skill, I don't think, to fight my way through this talent-wise.
So you hear about all the time, like how Saturday Night Live was sort of cutthroat and to get your skits on. Was it the same vibe there? You had to fight for what you wanted?
Yeah. And it was like, also like, you're doing it with guys that are like the master of groundlings and these fucking legends, you know what I mean? That I'd never done improv. I didn't know how to do sketch.
So you never really acted or done improv at this point?
No, I just, as soon as I got on that show, I was like, oh, I'm in over my head. I don't even know why I'm here.
So you got sort of imposter syndrome, Bobby? Is that kind of what you're saying? Like, where you feel like you didn't belong?
I think he still has imposter syndrome.
I still think I have it. Yeah. I think I still have it. Yeah. But it was hard, man. It was really 2
podcasts, a tour, television roles, and he's still fooling everybody.
I don't know who I'm a piece of shit.
You're not fooling anybody. You're very funny and very talented. But the other question I had for you, because I may have more, but I reserve the ability to ask you more questions. At what point did you have to do? Because at what point did you have to do somebody else's dialogue and found yourself, oh, this is what acting. I have to do somebody else's words.
That's why I wasn't good at it, because I just couldn't. Number one, I couldn't memorize lines. Also, when you're doing it in front of a live audience and a TV taping, there's like an element of pressure, right, that I had never experienced before.
Really? Because I found, having never done comedy, but having done a number of sitcoms, it's so much fun. It feels like theater to me.
Fuck you, dude. Fuck you.
Why?
Because you're a good actor. I'm not a good actor. I'm better now. I'm like, I know what I'm doing now, but it's
I'm asking about your first. Did you just see that? Like fucking dead.
No, because I didn't.
Give me the dead eye IRA stare.
First of all, do you know what? I didn't know what a mark was.
Yeah, but
I didn't know what a jib camera was.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that I love the live experience, and so I'm trying to parallel that to having now. By the time you got in front of you had done a lot of live experiences. It didn't feel the same.
It's completely different. It's absolutely because when you're doing stand up, you can mess up because they don't know what they don't know what you they don't know what you're. No, what I'm saying is that what I'm saying is completely like I have a gist of what the joke is, right? But I can say it the way I want to say it. I can, if it doesn't work, I can segue. I mean, there's just different things you can do.
You don't have a director telling you how to deliver the joke, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like some of the sketches were like Aaron Sorkin. What's the writer?
Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, Aaron Sorkin. Aaron Sorkin, like where it's like it's got to be word for word.
So did you pursue MADtv, Bobby, or did you have reps who said you got to do this? This is gonna be great.
No, I didn't have reps. I had a manager, but that's it.
But that's a rep.
Yeah, but but the way I got it was
I was a little hostile there. I'm sorry.
No, because she wasn't, but she's not
Did you hear me? I was like, you have a rep, damn it.
But she's not, I'm still with her, and she's not with a big company, right? She's just like this woman that lives, her office is in her house, and it's more of a mom and pop kind of a, parental vibe.
Right, it's not a big conglomerate.
Yeah, it's not like Broston and Gray or whatever. It was like, if, her office was in her house, I used to go over and spend the night at her house. I mean, she was like family. So I only had her, but who she had as a client was a woman by the name of Lauren Dombrowski.
Sure.
And Lauren, Lauren.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Marco.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Lauren, which at the time I didn't know she was sober, it was so weird because Abby calls Lauren, goes, listen, can Bobby audition? And she's like, yeah, but he's not a sketch guy. And also we're looking for one white guy. We're not looking for anything else. And Abby goes, well, he's just going to come in and practice. Please do, because it's like, he's never.
So it was a favor. You got on as a favor.
The first
Somebody
audition.
Did you a solid.
And it was just in front of a casting director on a weekend. She wasn't even really working, right? She just called me in. I walked in. I was by myself. And it was almost in the beginning. It was just like we have to just go through the motions because this kid is obviously not going to get it. But when I was in there,
we all have to come in on our Saturday. Do this anyway.
But when I was in there, she was like Nicole Garcia. She was just like she saw something, which I didn't even. And she goes, "Listen, that was actually some of it was really good." And she goes, "Come back next week." So I kept going in every week, and then eventually, like there was more and more people in the room, and then by like the 6th or 7th time, the room is packed with Lauren and David Salzman, who owns the show. I mean, just a bunch of people. Dick Blasucci.
So even that acceptance from everybody in the room still gave you that feeling of like I don't belong here.
Yeah, because they it was almost as if they're going, let's try this as an experiment almost. It wasn't like I was like,
well, I mean, they had plenty of material to figure. Not much of an experiment at that point because you'd come in and done it a number of times. They had as much certainty as they were going to get.
Yeah, but Taran Killam is who they wanted, who later was on SNL.
Okay,
but Taran was 17 at the time, and it got down to me and Taran.
And how old were you at the time, Bobby?
30. You know what I mean? So I was like, when I tested, it was just like me and Taran Killam at Fox, and I looked at him. I go, "You're gonna get this," and we both got it. So I mean, that's how it worked.
And how many years did you spend on MADtv?
8.
18. That was 8 years.
Yeah.
And you were miserable, and so you
the first 2. So I relapsed. Right. Well, I'll tell you why I relapsed. When I gone on there,
it's not because you're an addict or an alcoholic or anything like that.
I don't think if this didn't happen, I would have relapsed.
Okay, sure.
But it's like when you don't have, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I think this time around in sobriety, because I almost have 2 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm really like into it, and I'm kind of like, I have my Wednesday meeting that I set up, and I'm just more serious about it.
You're in
I'm in recovery. And this year, a lot of bad things have happened, and I was able to, like, because I have a foundation,
navigate it.
But when you haven't been to a meeting in 7 years, they have no foundation. So when I went on MADtv after that much sobriety, basically one of the producers said to me that he doesn't think that I'm funny,
and that was it.
That's
all you needed. Now he's dead to you. Everybody's dead to you. The show is dead to you.
Granted, I was bad on the show. I mean, my table reads were so awful that they used to record my table reads and just pass it around so they can laugh at me.
And at what point did you get over all of this and decide, you know what, I'm going to get an agent. I'm going to pursue acting.
I had an agent. So when you get a show, Gersh signed me.
Okay, great.
So I was with Gersh, and then they 2 years in, I was so bad, I was so drugged out that they fired me. And then I got sober again. Anyway, I was at a meeting, and Lauren just basically saw me, and she was just like, she called them and said, he's different. So they gave me another year.
At the agency?
No, at MADtv. They had fired me, and then.
And at what point did you start actually acting? Because I mean, you're a legitimate, sought after actor. Like, as we
not
sit
then,
here,
not then.
Don't yell at me.
I'm not yelling. I'm just not then. Not then.
I understand not then, but I'm saying now.
Here's what happened.
But then, how do you not like say I don't want to come back after somebody says that and sort of cracks your ego and says
because he was a mess, working. I guess. I mean, that's what I'm picking up.
I felt like I for me, I was like, doing it the way I did it in the beginning, I'm gonna do it different.
Almost as a fuck you, I'm gonna do it better.
No, what I did was like, I'm not gonna, because on Monday nights they had like where they did pitches. And then that Monday night they were writing.
You pitch the skit?
So you would pitch on Mondays, and I never used to go because they never took my pitches, right? But this time I was like,
you were just butthurt.
I'm going to stay there
and went home.
So when I got sober, I was like, I'm going to stay there on Mondays to the end, to midnight, regardless. And I kept grinding that away. And eventually, what happened was a lot of the old cast members left, and this new generation of kids came.
And so you were a senior member.
I became senior. Then Ike Barinholtz, Key and Peele, all these young guys started coming in, and then I became friends with them. I'm still very good friends with all those guys. So it just started, and really doing AA real, and I just sort of like happened for me.
And at what point did you realize that, okay, I can do this acting thing, I can do other people's dialogue, I can be on a set, I can do all of it?
I think I did my first movie, I think maybe Harold and Kumar.
Oh yeah.
You just kind of get more comfortable. What it is comfort, right? You in your mind, you're like, it's this big fucking thing, but this is like, once you do it enough, you're kind of like, oh, I know what it is. And here's another thing: is you don't have to be perfect. That's the thing, you know what I mean? Like, if I don't get it right the first time, like during rehearsals, they're gonna see through me. It's like all these fucked up mental things, and I just realized, you're rehearsing. You're not supposed to know it, And then when you're on set, it's like, I did a movie called The Dictator, and I remember I was so nervous to do a scene with Ben Kingsley, Sir Ben Kingsley, and I show up, and I remember him going. During a scene, he goes, line, like he didn't know his line. And at that point, I was just like, oh, he doesn't know. Like, people don't know.
You think people just come in brilliant?
Yeah. Like, the guys like that is going line. I'm going, I could say line.
Sure.
Right? So it's like, you learn stuff like that.
So everything was demystified for you, in essence.
Exactly.
Through experience.
It took years.
Part of it has to be, too, just like anything in life, you get older and you start caring a little less, too, right? You start not caring about what other people think.
I think in the last 3 years that's actually happened, but I cared too much for many, many years. Something happened.
What do you attribute that to?
This.
Being
podcasting.
What about fear of happiness?
On a cheery note, let's switch to our topic, which is fear of happiness.
Oh no! Why? What are you doing this for? You and your topics. All right, let's go.
Why is he yelling at me again? All he does is yell at me.
Let's go.
First of all, it's called cherophobia. Did you know this? That fear of happiness is called cherophobia.
The fear of happiness is called cherophobia.
Yeah. Are we just going to repeat? Are we doing like a
no? I want it.
You're absorbing it.
It's called repetition. I'm doing a Meisner technique.
That's what I said. You'll be doing Meisner.
Yeah.
So before we talk about the fear of happiness, let's. This is a definition of happiness. Which he's meditating. For the people that don't know, he's got his head on the mic, eyes closed, and he's like doing a meditation, or like he's about to take a punch.
I thought he was trying to come.
Oh my God.
That's good. You're writer, dude. You're writer, dude.
See what he does? He brings it up.
You're right. I call it callback. No, I just want to get it right, so that's why I'm closing my eyes.
The experience of joy, contentment, or positive well-being combined with a sense that one's life is good, meaningful, and worthwhile. That's one definition of happiness. So, do you have any fear of being happy? Do you have fear of happiness? Are you afraid of being happy or in a happy state? Or is it something that you target?
I think I'm better at it now. In this last couple of years, especially in the last year, I thought, I have it just so good. And I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but right now it's so good. And I've had these moments of like, wow, and pinching myself and going, you didn't quit. You kept going. And I'm proud of you.
Well, you just touched on one of the symptoms, Bobby, which is fear of happiness. One of the symptoms is you accept that you're at this high period of your life, that you're happy, but you worry what's going to come next, where the roller coaster is going to go down, the inevitable downfall. But it sounds like you're happy just being up.
Well, the worst has happened in this last year. I think that's what the key is like the worst things. So
basically, you can be happy only if you've gone through a cauldron of misery.
Well, yeah, you realize number one, you can survive it. And number two, you realize, because in those time periods, it's like, it's either you go down that negative path and you let it fucking defeat you, or you go, listen, I need some semblance of happiness here. Let's look at your life and figure out what's real and what's not. And when you figure out like, oh, these people love you. You mean you live in LA in this year, in this time, LA has the best 12-step groups in the world. You know what I mean? Also, I was a regular at all the comedy clubs, you know what I mean? Which it was always a dream of mine to be able to play anywhere I want to. Right. And so you write down a gratitude list of like what.
So you're just focusing on the things that you're grateful for.
And yeah, and when you're in the midst of your world falling apart, yeah.
Because that's how you survive it. That's how you.
That's how I survive it.
You're not the first, and you won't be the last. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, it gets dark.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just flip the perspective and go, how many people out there in the world would want to be Bobby Lee, right? How many would want to be in my position? And sometimes that kind of perspective helps you realize where you are on that roller coaster as well.
Yeah. I mean, of course, that's a part of it. And also, you realize that most of the doom is in your mind. And that's, you figure that out. You go, oh.
Well, that's the number one fear. The reason that people are afraid of being happy is because they're afraid the other shoe's going to drop, that something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I always looked at it as a sense of control. Well, if I can control knowing that something bad is going to happen, then I can sort of not feel the disappointment when it comes. And I don't know what your experience is, but mine is the disappointment that you were afraid of feels just as bad. Just as bad.
Yeah. You're right.
As if you didn't know it was coming and it hit you sideways. I mean, whatever the degree of difference isn't worth it.
Yeah. Eventually you have to stop this insanity. It just becomes insane. You know what I mean? It's like, I do this OCD thing where I touch a doorknob 3 times. And then one day I was just like, what are you doing? This is insane.
I'm not touching it.
And I stopped doing it.
So I experience the same stuff, Bobby. I'm like light switches. I got to do that. Or if I step on a crack, I got to go back and step on it again. And it drives my wife crazy. But in my mind, I say, if I don't do that, I'm going to die. But I know that I'm not going to die if I don't do it.
I know. But you know what I say when, fuck it, I'm going to die then.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. I'd rather die than do it.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing, the interesting that I read is that a lot of people don't allow themselves to be happy because they feel they don't deserve it.
Guilt.
Like
that. Like, who are you to be happy?
Yeah.
Who are you? Who do you think you are to be happy? I don't know why I became an old dude there.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are to be happy?
It's interesting. Yeah. I grew up with a lot of trauma. Right. So,
which your listeners are well aware of.
Yeah. I don't have to get into it, but my dad was violent. And so, my brother and I took it 2 different ways. He lashes out in the world and I lash within, you know what I mean? And so it's like, and realizing I punish myself for no reason because my dad used to punish me for no reason. So I just have carried on the mantle. Right.
It's familiar.
Familiar.
And it's also the only connection you have with him.
Yeah.
Sure.
So once I realized what I was doing, this is where it got bad. Like years ago, I did an audition for this Amy Poehler project, and I just didn't work on it. And I walked in there, and it was so bad, this audition. And I walked into my car, and I had a bottle of water, and I smashed my head. I took the bottle of water, just smashing it on my head until I was bleeding. Right. So I was like in my car bleeding, punishing myself for making a mistake. And then once I realized that's what are you doing? Right. And I went into therapy and stuff. And I realized that like I can't do that anymore.
I love that you just I went into therapy. Yeah, that might have been required. You know what I mean? Like people are listening and like, should I maybe go to therapy if I yes, you should get any help you can.
Yeah, like punishing myself for something. And so I just went, I can't do that anymore. I can't treat myself like that anymore. I have to love myself. You know what I mean? That's so, and it's like, punishing yourself for the same mistake 1 billion times. Like I stopped that. I was like, I'm done. I paid my price.
Some people it takes a long time before they realize, you know what?
But you have to realize it first though, Danny,
Well, that's what pain will do.
Yeah.
You get enough pain, you're like, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Let me make a switch. So one of the things we do is we have an audience question. So I want to ask you the audience question from Robin C. And Robin wants to know, out of anywhere you've ever been, where's your happy place?
Oh, I know that well.
You gonna let us know?
Yeah, I'm just gonna get into it, man.
Sorry.
So, when I was dating Khalyla, who I have a podcast called TigerBelly with, please listen. We used to we go to the Philippines a lot. We still go. Even when we broke up, we went. And in the Philippines, there's like 7,000 like islands, like these mini little islands, and they're remote. There's no one on them, and we took a little like canoe thing to an island. It was like the size of this room, this island.
Did you canoe it yourself, or did you have a guide?
You had a guy.
Yeah,
a guy
who
doing
took
it.
you to the island.
Took me, yeah.
And but it was a small
little island, nothing on it, maybe a couple of trees and stuff. And it was a bunch of us, so I could hear. I was on my back, and the water's so blue too, like you can see right through it. And I was on my back floating, and in the water I could hear Khalyla and everyone playing and laughing, right? And the water was so warm too, right? And I was on my back and I was floating, and I was like I was so content.
And because you're underwater, they're a little muted, right? They're
muted too, right? But I could hear just laughter, from a distance, but also hearing the ocean, right? And also just like the blue sky, you know what I mean? There's a pocket there of sheer serenity and peace. And that's my happy spot.
He needs more energy. He needs to be more candid and talk about himself a little bit more personally, don't you think?
I could use a little less discussion about the things that come out of his penis. I'll be honest with you. Or don't come out of his penis.
I mean, I just love that he just comes right out with it. That's how he starts. It was so great. I was thinking a little bit back. I'm like, all right, I guess this is what we're talking about. Let's roll with it.
It is a right hook for the listeners. They're not going to see that one coming. No pun intended.
I know. It's so funny. He's so forthcoming with who he is. No pun intended there. With who he is and how he lives his life. And I could have talked to him for another couple hours. It was much fun.
And he's not afraid to peel back the layers and get to the sensitive innards. You know what I mean? I mean, he shared some like beyond what we just talked about, shared some really personal stuff, which made the conversation something special. I think this is one of the best ones we've done so far.
Do you think this is redundant? Like they just listened to it. They already know all of this. The listener already knows all of this. They've just heard it. We hope they get to this part and they've heard it all. If you're listening, listener, thank you for listening, and we appreciate you.
Music by Denny Nucci. Produced and edited by the same two people you heard hosting this show because they have no friends.